we weren't going to cover this book, but we ended up covering it. Infinite Frontier #0, the reset of the DC universe, multiverse, omniverse, whatever the hell you want to call it.
They haven't done that before, have they?
No, not like this is the 5th time they've done this. So, if you're new to the show, we are not avid DC readers. We're more Marvel.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, we're more Marvel oriented. But we try to, incorporate DC as much as we can in our shows where it's prevalent, where we're interested in, right? Like, we're not just going to pick up a Superman book because we're like, we got to read more DC. No, we're going to read a Superman book because we're interested in it or whatever.
Or because we like the writer.
That too, and we've been more prevalent to reading Dark Label or Black Label books. And now that that's kind of going away, we're just trying to figure out.
See you later, Manny.
Oh, what's up, Manny? Bye. I didn't even notice because I'm not looking at chat. Sorry, Manny. We try to incorporate DC where we can, where we feel like our interests lie.
I also want to clarify too that at least you had a little bit more comic exposure before the past year and a half, but like I didn't, and there's only so much you can read, and I, as a history major, am very obsessed with knowing everything. And as a matter of fact, when I started reading comics, I was convinced that I was going to start at Fantastic Four #1 and just read in publication order until I got caught up, because I just didn't understand the scope.
Yeah.
So it's not that I have a hatred for DC or anything like that. It's just like
there's a lot.
There's a lot, and when I feel more comfortable, I think, with where I'm at with Marvel, I feel like I could dive in a little bit more DC. But this is my attempt to be, because you didn't pick this up until I did.
Exactly.
So this is my attempt to try to jump in at a more of a new starter point and just kind of see what's going on with the DC continuity as a whole.
So, what we get in this book, so this is essentially a prologue and epilogue. Or it's an epilogue to Death Metal, and it's a prologue to the new Infinite Frontier event, right? Or not even event, what DC Comics are now. And so, in order to understand this book, you have to know that what happened in Death Metal. In Death Metal, Wonder Woman essentially sacrificed herself and was chosen to be the guardian of the new frontier, the Infinite Frontier multiverses, if you will. And so this book continues that journey for her, and she meets other beings that are in this same position, and they're giving her a spot on this council of beings that oversee the multiverse. And they're essentially trying to tell her, you should join, everything's okay, there's nothing to worry about. And she's like, no, I was told to look for something that was off, and that's why I probably should be this, in charge of the multiverse, right? And they're like, okay, well, we'll have Spectre go with you through the new timelines and new multiverses, and you can see for yourself that everything's okay. And so there's multiple stories within this book that are setting up other books that are going to currently come out in the DC universe, right? I think the coolest one for me that I liked was the Batman, clearly the Joker story. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that one's probably written by Tynion.
It is, yeah.
And that one was by far the coolest story in this book. Essentially, Joker, I guess after the Joker War, kind of disappeared, and now he's attacking again, and he basically kills everybody in Arkham Asylum. And it's pretty sick and twisted. Everyone's got a grin, but their jaws are dislocated and their tongues are hanging out. And it's really fucked up. That was a cool story.
Kills Bane.
Yeah, he literally kills Bane. Bane's hooked up like this, and they pull his mask off, and he's like he's all fucked up. That was cool. And so she basically jumps multiple stories of where we're headed. So in Justice League, for instance, the Black Adam is now Shazam, so it's Shazadam.
Is that for real, or is someone trying to be funny?
I think we're gonna have to read. I think it's real. So there's that. There's a next Batman story, but if you read it and you didn't read the next Batman comics in Future State, it literally would have flown right over your head.
Yeah.
And then the Magistrate is kind of set up in this book too. Like he's, setting up his whole like no masks in Gotham. So again, if you haven't read those, that kind of flies over your head, and they're assuming that you did. There is a coming out story for Green Lantern, because I know that was already established in the previous continuity that Green Lantern, the old school Green Lantern, is gay. Well, now he came out to his children in this book, and they're like, "Dad, don't be silly." Awesome, and I was just like, "This is weird. Like this was already established that he was gay."
It felt very forced.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Like I'm all for it, but like that's already been established. So now he's just making sure he can come out to his kids. And you would think that they would have heard that if he came out to like the Justice League. Whatever. So that was kind of weird. Like it just felt, like you said, it just felt forced. Like we already know this. Like cool. And then there's this whole Themyscira storyline where Diana's mom basically gives up power to, I forget her name, Nebula?
No,
I forget her name. It's essentially in Future State, it looked like we were going to get two Wonder Womans, one from Brazil and then an African American Wonder Woman. In this book, there's some skepticism towards the one that's from Brazil, and the African American Wonder Woman is now in charge of the entire island, while Diana's mother goes and looks for this other Wonder Woman. So that's established in this book.
Yes.
Throughout this book, Spectrum is showing Wonder Woman that it's okay to become one of them, to be this godlike person. And she looks badass. Like her costume looks so fucking cool. And they're just trying to convince her. Well, at the end of the book, she agrees to go back, and it looks like she's going to join. And then she says no. And she's like, I want to be part of the Infinite Frontier too. And she dismisses the responsibility that was put upon her from like these very strange and unknown voices from Death Metal. And so she's just like, never mind, I'm gonna go fight, yay! And she leaves, and she comes back to continuity. That pisses me off. And I know that you didn't read Death Metal, but Death Metal, like what they did in this book essentially goes, Death Metal doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. And like, again, I'm not a heavy DC reader, but I was invested in that event. And we know that before Death Metal started, AT&T and Warner Brothers slashed the shit out of DC Comics staff and writers. Got rid of a shit ton of people, got rid of a shit ton of titles, and they literally said, we're bringing it back to basic stories, just basic stories. And when I originally heard that, I was like, oh, cool, maybe I'll get into it. And now that I've read Death Metal, I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, this doesn't feel right. Like, you literally had this gigantic event that had huge consequence, then you write this and go, that doesn't matter. Like, it literally was like one page, everything that happened in Death Metal doesn't matter.
But it seems like everything in Death Metal matters, right? Like Death Metal is what reset the continuity and allowed the multiverse to come back.
Not Death Metal. The person that reset continuity and allowed everything to come back. In order for it to come back, Diana had to make the sacrifice to leave the multiverse, to become that being. And so in this book, she's like, nah, never mind, I'm coming back. Well, she's the reason why it happened.
Right. So the thing that they're saying doesn't count, doesn't matter, is her, not the whole event. The biggest part of the event, right, is the resetting, and they're basically bringing back all continuities, saying all continuities matter, all continuities are here.
But the only reason why that works is because she sacrificed her life to do it. She sacrificed Death Metal was essentially a Wonder Woman story through and through. It's all about Wonder Woman. And at the end of Death Metal, she was given a choice. She was given a choice. Either she could let everything die and end, or she could sacrifice basically her life for everyone, all of her friends, all of these multiverses, like you're saying, to exist. But in order for that to happen, she had to become part of that group. She had to become the protector. And she bails at this book. She's just like, fuck it, I want to go have fun. And to me, I'm not saying what I'm saying is I think that's poor writing. I think that's and I think it's, and I'm not even a DC hardcore. I would love to hear if there's DC people watching this right now and they're like, no, actually, I think this is great. Awesome. I'm off. I'm totally off. But if I'm a DC reader and I just read Death Metal, I'd be pissed because it's basically saying what you just invested in, all the money you put into that book, doesn't mean shit. I don't know. That's just me.
I need to hear from some DC people for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And you know what? Maybe we should ask Ron. Maybe Ron or Jacob probably have a better perspective on it. But for me, like, I actually was digging this book. And then at the end, when she's like, "Well, bye," and she just goes back to being Wonder Woman, to me, that's AT&T and Warner Brothers going, we need Wonder Woman. We need Wonder Woman comics. Make her come back. Fuck whatever you wrote. We just need basic comic book stories about these characters so we can sell more comics, so we can have a wider base of readers, which I understand that, but also do better. Just do it better. Like I have never been really this frustrated with a comic book before, and it's hilarious that I'm pissed off about a DC comic book. Like,
yes, that is pretty funny.
We don't read DC, but I read Death Metal, and it's just like, fuck Death Metal. This is what it is now. And I don't think that this was the direction they were going. And they did a complete 180 because they felt like the stories they were telling weren't good. And I don't think that's the reason why people don't pick up. And again, now we're kind of getting into some weird territory here. I don't think Marvel people I don't think they pick up DC books, not because there aren't good stories. It's because it's just not their thing. And so they can't, I feel like DC is trying to steal or trying to get more people to read DC books, and they weren't getting it with, the stories they were telling prior to AT&T and Warner Brothers buyout. So now they're like, all right, let's just do basic stories. And I think in doing that, they're going to turn off a lot of DC readers too. Yeah. That's me personally.
I gotcha.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say that one of the reasons why I picked this book up is because I wanted to see if there were any stories that seemed interesting to me that I might want to read or possibly look into. And I would say that this issue succeeded at that. Like, I'm very interested to see where Tanian is going to take Batman from now. I think this would be a good place to jump on. So I'm thinking about actually picking up 106 just to kind of see what's going on. I've been very, very close to adding Superman to my pool because Philip Kennedy Johnson is writing it now. And I really liked the story that he had in here. So I think I am going to probably maybe not add it to my pool, but at least pick up the first few issues. I was intrigued by the Flash story and what's his name? Barry Allen saying that he was going to basically be traveling the multiverse. If that book covers that and him going through different multiverses and exploring this Earth Omega, I'm very interested in that. But finally, and this could be nothing, and it could be a red herring, and I'll be very sad and cry. But the big giant splash page with all of the characters happens to have my favorite DC character of all time here. Our Green Lantern from Far Sector is included in there as well. If there are more books about her, I definitely will be reading those.
I can confirm to you that she will be in more Green Lantern books. I can tell you that for sure.
How do you know? Or you just
I read somewhere that she's joining the Corps essentially, like she's going to be more prominent.
Great character.
I think this book. No, go for it.
I was just going to say, I say that she is a great character being written by N.K. Jemisin. But honestly, one of the great things about her is that she's a very tough and I don't know. If she's not written in the same way that N.K. Jemisin is writing her, then I'll be very sad. But I think
Maddie, come on now. Don't do that. Don't do that. Maddie goes, yeah, but Wonder Woman 84 was the bomb, yo. Yeah, it bombed like hell. All right. Anyway.
We talked about this book forever, but...
Well, hold on. I got one more thing to say. I think you're right in the sense that for me, outside of the whole just dropping the ball on Wonder Woman, it did achieve, like, it did pique my curiosity. Like, that Batman, hopefully the Joker story was pretty awesome. Like, that was cool. Mm-hmm. And I am kind of intrigued with the Shazam character. And I think that's going to be in Michael and Bendis's Justice League run, which there is a little bit of hype for that. So, I might do that.
For a Bendis run?
Yeah, he's doing Justice League. But again, I just think it's a major fail for anybody that was involved with the death metal run. Like, I don't know. I feel like this comic was already written and then they just edited the back end. And here's the best part. We didn't even get to this, and then we'll move on to our next book. The book ends with her making that decision and leaving and coming back to Earth, right? Mm-hmm. And all the beings are like, she doesn't know what she's missing. We'll get her back. We'll convince her to come back. We're now on this Earth Omega, and this is basically a prison for this ultimate doom that she was so worried about. And everything's fine because this is a place for, and they it goes ... for gods to, and then there's another voice that says die, and all the beings get spiked through the head from some shadowy figure, and it's the ultimate version of Darkseid. That's the big bad. Darkseid is an old character. He's one of the new gods, I believe. I think he's part of the new gods, Jack Kirby's new gods.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, and it's a character we already know. Like, the ending screams, change this, retcon it right now, just fix these two panels to make it more generic so people that know, that kind of have a familiarity with DC Comics will understand what we're writing about in the next year. And that kind of pisses me off. And that doesn't kind of piss me off.
It pisses me off.
So,
oh Lord,
I just think it's silly. It's like you had this epic, crazy event, and then it's like, and we're back to vanilla. Who wants chocolate ice cream? Like, that's what it feels like. I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on.